Yes, hello everyone, welcome back to another video here on An Cluiche with me, Seamus Brady, your host. It's another interview. This is interview 17 on the series. I'm delighted to be joined by a Donegal GA legend, All-Ireland winner, Naomh McLoone. Leo, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day, sir. How are you today?
Thank you, Seamus. Just delighted to get on the podcast, and thank you for asking me. It's a privilege, and hopefully I'll give you some bit of interesting stuff.
No bother at all. And look, the obvious place to start is you're a Donegal man. Donegal over the summer, over the off season. Jim McGuinness coming back in. What was your first kind of reaction when you heard the news that Jimmy was back again?
Yeah, I think just the whole thing shifted from a negative last year and a lot of negative press and thing, to just flipped right on its head to positivity. And I think, GA in Donegal is an important part of many communities, and I mean, like, to get that, I suppose, get Jim in, back involved, get him in charge. I think the people of Donegal were just kind of delighted to maybe get some sort of positivity towards the senior team and towards Donegal GA. And I think one of the McKenna Cup games was huge numbers in Croke Park for that. And it's kind of reflecting now I suppose the feel and the vibe that's kind of surrounding the county now in terms of the senior team, and largely down to Jim McGuinness becoming the manager, and I suppose a bit of hope for winning in the next couple of years. And I think overall everybody's kind of delighted with the news.
Well, that's it. It was the perfect appointment. It was the one that you'd say, God, if anyone was to come in, if I could wave a magic wand, I'd bring Jim McGuinness back. And someone clearly did wave a magic wand, because he is back in. And I mean, for him as well, knowing kind of studying similarities between his first reign and this reign would kind of give us a bit of an inkling of what we're in for. And I think he must have been absolutely delighted when Mickey Hart came in and took over as Derry boss, because I mean, all of a sudden everybody was talking about Mickey Hart as Derry boss, and he was kind of free to operate almost more in the shadows than he would have with Donegal as well. But I imagine he's gone right back to what he did so successfully, which is the similarities and the differences kind of between now and 2000 and late 2010, early 2011, when he took over at the start. Like, it isn't a Donegal group that has never won an Ulster title before. It isn't a Donegal group that hasn't, competed at the very highest level. Like 2009, it was mostly, I think pretty much everyone on that team. I don't think anyone on that team had an Ulster medal. Nobody had on that team had an Ulster medal. And he came into there and tried to infuse the winning attitude. Here, he has people like Ryan McHugh, Paddy McBrearty, experienced campaigners who have been there. So how different do you think it is now to what it was back in 2010?
Yeah, there's a lot of similarities, but there's differences also. I suppose Donegal last year were probably in a poor position, and things weren't going great for the team and for the management, with the Paddy Carr coming and then going. And and I suppose in 2009 and 10 it was pretty similar to that. Maybe not managers coming and going, but as it was on the pitch, we weren't getting results, and I suppose morale within the county was fairly low. And I know 2010, I think, Crossmaglen, a game in Crossmaglen against Armagh was the game Donegal were knocked out of championship. And it's been referenced a lot since, from that to then Jim took over in 11, and things kicked off obviously then, with a build block in 11, and then won All Ireland in 12. So there's a lot of similarities there in terms of, I suppose, maybe where Donegal was at football wise. And as you say then, there's a bit of a difference now, because you have players, you don't have many All Ireland winners. I think maybe Paddy's the only one left. But you do have players that have had success and as you said, won Ulster titles. I suppose they know how to win, which is a good thing. And going forward, I think that'll be good. And I think by all accounts, everyone has rode in very well behind Jim. And I mean, I suppose Jim is, you're in or you're out kind of a character. And I think by all accounts, everybody has really bought in. And I suppose for the players now, maybe that haven't played under Jim in the past, they can look back to 2011, 12 and see, well, listen, this group of players, I should say, rode in behind Jim. They done the work he asked. They got the reward. So, I mean, there's that going on for the players. That if we believe in this man, maybe we can get success out of that. But I suppose then it brings a slight bit of maybe pressure that might you might hamper things, or not hamper things, but maybe make it a wee bit more difficult, a slight bit of pressure on the players that, that it was done back 10, 11, 12, or 9 or 10 years ago, sorry, and, can we do it? But no, I think there's enough mix of experience in the team along with youth, and kind of a bit of rawness there to try and drive the thing on and drive each other on. So no, I think they're in a good place, and I think there's good confidence built over the last few games in the McKenna Cup. Few great wins, and I think they're playing, and then the players look to be enjoying themselves, and they're just, I suppose when you're training under Jim, what you really want is games coming up, because it takes you away from the training pitch, and
And how hard were those trainings? We've heard the myths about those trainings in 2011. Like Joe Brolly said, it was like an army boot camp. I remember Naomh McGee saying that he was almost too bed up to sleep when he got home from trainings. Like he was saying he was too sore to sleep. Was it like that? Like, was it that level?
It was like there was nothing that scientific to it, and every day you went to training, Jim just tried to push you as hard as you could go. And I mean, at the time, like, it was kind of like nothing was going to be good enough. No matter how hard you ran, it still wasn't fast enough. So at all times you were on guard to try and try and run as fast as you could, or move the ball as quick as you could, or don't drop it in a drill. So it kept you on guard, and and probably everybody together, doing that, it really improved the standards, and I suppose it drove us on. But no, like running wise, as I say, there was nothing that scientific about it. Like it was just tough going, and you were asked to run and run, keep running, and we were probably in a good position, like I said earlier, that we hadn't had much success prior to that with Donegal seniors, and I think there was a middle-aged group of players, kind of similar to now, that were well willing to knuckle down and really give it everything, because when you get to that stage in your career, you're like, when you're young and in your early 20s, you feel like it's going to last forever, and the next thing you're well into the other side of your 20s, and you're like, geez, this went quick, and I haven't maybe won or done what I dreamed of. So luckily there was a huge core of players there that were brilliant footballers and huge ability, that really took the bull by the horns, and they drove the thing on. And I suppose back then we were lucky just to get there, and to get the success then that we did.
Yeah, no, like when we were talking about the similarities and differences, one similarity that I'm going to say now to 2011, there's no obvious ruling champion. Dublin are, last year kind of felt like the last dance. It's questionable whether they're going to get back to the top again. Kerry were knocked off their perch last year. Tyrone are going to bounce back. Derry are going to bounce back. Donegal are going to bounce back. Like there's a lot coming this year. Galway as well, Mayo. Like there's a lot of teams around who will feel like they could have a shot here. That's similar to what it was like in 2011. There was no obvious, like Limerick on the hurling, for example. There's no obvious champion to go for. Whereas the difference is as you said, the pressure now. A lot of people are, have been saying that if Donegal want to win the All-Ireland, this is the man to do it. And when he came in originally, there wasn't exactly that. Like people who had watched him come up with the under-21s and everything knew that he was bringing a good crop with him and knew he was a good manager. But it didn't feel like the same pressure was on him. Now there's a bit of pressure to deliver results. And that's what I'm saying. He must have been delighted when Mickey went in as Derry boss. He's not the only new man in the job up in Ulster. But to bring it back to yourself, club-wise this year, Naomh Conaill, Donegal champions, I just wanted to ask you how you felt after that. Another Donegal championship, another medal to the collection.
Yeah, no, we're delighted. It was huge to get two in a row, and I suppose like we're kind of there's a group of players there in the parish now that are fairly humble, and I mean we never look past our own county, as it's a tough it's a tough county to come out of, and there's good competition there, but no, like it was just very rewarding, and I suppose like it's a small community in Glenties and Fintown, and there's the population is low, and I think it's just it's a privileged position to be in, to be representing our club, when we go to Ulster, and we were short of a point or two there against Glen, an Ulster semi, and I suppose we were disappointed. We came up short, but we're for a small area, and we're kind of we're punching above our weight, but we hope to keep doing that.
Yeah, no, without doubt. I mean, these were fantastic in the game against Glen. Even like it was such a close contest, and when you see where Glen have ended up, there's no doubt that the talent is there, which is, and like I wouldn't put it past us to bounce back and be contenders to go further next year as well. But as you said, Donegal is hell of a difficult championship to get out of. And then like I was going to ask you this. Your first county title with Glenties came in 2005. Now, obviously, you're a different role in the team back then. You were mentioning about the new generation in Glenties. You were that youngster in 05. How did you find kind of your role changing over the years, going from being kind of the young hustler in the team at 2005 who'll, run around, cover every blade of grass on the pitch, to becoming more experienced, more important in the team, more of a leader, more of a captain as the years went on?
Yeah, I think 2005, and I think the cliche goes, was a breakthrough year for us as a club. And like at the time, we didn't really realize we had, what we had done, or the enormity of it. We had won minor championships, 03 and 04. And literally there was a huge chunk of that team that went on to be the senior team of 05, adding in a few others. But as kind of what I'm getting at is, like, I kind of went through that, say, 10-year period, maybe 12, 13-year period with the same players, like Anthony Thompson, Brendan McDyer, Marty Boyle, Brick Malloy coming in then a few years later. There was a huge group of us. We kind of done it as a group, because we were so lucky in 05 to make that breakthrough. We all made it together as young players, and like it just kind of we done it together, and we kind of we drove the thing on when we felt it was going shit, or we kind of pull boys in at different stages, and it kind of was, it was more of a kind of a I kind of went through it as a process with players at the time, and I think it really it was good for the club at the time to have a good young core players in 05 that there's a lot of them still playing now, and I think it was kind of largely down to a lot of our success over the years.
Oh, 100% helps. I mean, if you turn and you really care about your teammates and there is a bit of a brotherhood bond between them, definitely helps, especially when you want that 1 inch, that 0.5 of an inch to get past another team. It really, really helps. It might make you run that extra centimeter, that millimeter that you might need to run. But when you're talking about breakthroughs, what I always find as well is that there's always a game that always sticks out. And like we've seen a lot of books about, the game that changed your life or the game that sticks out. Was there a game when you were growing up that you can remember thinking, I'm pretty good at this, I might actually have a shot here at making it Donegal setup?
I suppose like our club, and that's kind of the way we've been in the past, even continuing on in the past 10, 15 years. Like we have low numbers, and we don't have that successful of underage teams, maybe bar minors. But when I say younger, I mean like 12s, 14s. And I suppose when I was that age, we played 2 under 12B finals, and we won both of them. And I suppose when I was in my last year of under 12s, I remember we played St Michael's in the final, and I remember getting a good few goals that day and a few points to win it, and I was captain, my father was manager, and all the rest. So there's some great memories going back to that times. And I suppose we were lucky then. It's just we're very lucky to hold our players as they get older, and we actually improve as the years went on a lot of the time. And I think the two teams that won the 2 under 12B finals, they ended up winning under 21As when they got to that stage, and we ended up making 3 under 21s in a row, and we have a good record at under 21. So it helped the small community. It helps, and a lot, we didn't lose money to immigration, or a lot of boys stayed around the community, and I suppose it all helped build the success, I suppose, that we have today.
I see, and success definitely helps, not just the club, but the whole area, as you said. And so then you went from Glenties, you got selected for the Donegal minor team. And I was talking to you about this off air. You were part of a unique couple of years where you actually got the opportunity to go to Croke Park in 2005 and win, 2006 was it, to win an Ulster minor title in Croke Park. Like at such an early age to play a final in Croke Park, a provincial final. Not a lot of players would have got that opportunity. But like, talk to me about that. Like the Ulster final was on immediately after, and you're there playing in the third largest stadium in Europe, largest stadium in the country. Like, not a bad day out.
Yeah, no, it was a great year as a whole that year, and I remember like going in as a raw, under 17 at the time, and it was off the back of the 2005 breakthrough, and kind of panicking that like we had trials on, and Sean Clerkin was the manager, but we had trials, and I was taken off on the trials, and I kind of panicked. I thought wasn't good enough, and he took me off. But he came over to me then and reassured me, that everything was all right, and that they'd seen me, and so when you're young and kind of naive, I suppose you're raw to some things. And I suppose that year it was a dream year as a 17-year-old, really, to go on, and we'd a great journey with a lot of players, and learned a huge amount, as you say, like getting to Croke Park and playing a few games in Croke Park, and narrowly missing out to Kerry, who went on then to beat, or Roscommon went on to beat them in the final then. But it was huge, kind of, and at the time you didn't really, everything was breezing by, and you're young, and you're carefree, and it was all brilliant, but you weren't taking it in as such. I think as you get older, you start to reflect and appreciate things. But no, it was huge years, and learning and developing, and enjoyment as well.
Mm-hmm. No doubt. I mean, that's one hell of an opportunity that you got, 05 and 06, sorry, and golden memories made there, no doubt about it. And then, like, speaking of opponents, you mentioned about the trial game. One question I love asking this one, is I always say, who was the first one? Because everybody comes up against one. Who was the first one where you were like, God, he's good, or I hate playing against him, or like he's a nasty one to come up against? Because you played against Seamus Coleman. Just state
That's
that.
right.
Seamus Coleman, you're up
Yeah,
against him.
we played in one of the minor finals. I think Shamey played in 06. Yeah, we played 6 and 7. It was 2006, and I remember earlier in 06 as well. Seamus Coleman was on the verge of he was Gaelic or soccer, and he was on our minor team at the start of the year, and he was on the books with Sligo Rovers. And I remember him travelling to training with us, and then not training because he was he was kind of contracted. And I remember it was a big dilemma for him at the time what he was going to do. And I think we all know what he done, but it was like, I couldn't pick a better man to go on, and I think his success and his caps there, last weekend was unbelievable. And I think everybody in Donegal speaks of Seamus Coleman, and they think that they're proud within themselves because he's a Donegal man. And I think he was so close to going on and playing Gaelic with us that year. It was such a fine line, and he went with Sligo, and the rest is history. But as I say, no better man, and it was a privilege to play against him, and we've all huge respect for him in Donegal. So no, that's that one. But it was in going on, as you asked about the man you played against.
Toughest, yeah. Who was the first one where you were like, oh, not him?
Yeah, it was kind of a lot of people picking this person, but I probably got a glimpse of him up close, a bit younger than most. When we were playing under 16s, and we were on an under 16 team together as Michael Murphy. And I remember, coming up against him, and well, he wasn't as big and strong as he was in later years, but I think it was the sheer determination he had, and just up in Drumbo, which the Donegal people or the older players remembered as again of a mosh pit. But I always remember coming up against him in 1v1s and bouncing off each other back then. And we were very lucky, and we often reference it, from going from there. We were very lucky to have the success we did in Donegal, and no, it would have definitely been him at the early stage,
Well, there's loads of lads there. Look, I play for my club. I would never ever want to be marked by Naomh McGee. I would absolutely Anthony Thompson, Eamon McGee. Some serious players there. And look, we'll move on to when Jim came in. So we've mentioned about the training that Jim did. We've discussed, the absolute dedication and commitment that the players had put into that. He's went on. He's won Division 2 in 2011. He's beat Laois in the final. He has then beat Antrim and beat Cavan to set up an Ulster semi-final with Tyrone. Now, in the documentary, it's in Jimmy's Win a Match documentary. It's very clear that he, had Tyrone in his scopes from very early on and had a tag on them as they were the team to beat. And for a lot of people, that was the game. I remember being a kid back then. I remember saying, Donegal beat Tyrone. That's unusual to see Tyrone not win Ulster. But for a lot of people, that was the game that made them sit up and take notice of Donegal. But the question is to you is, A, what was it like to be in the camp beating Tyrone like that? And B, was that the game that made everyone think, okay, we're onto something now. This is working. We're clicking.
Yeah, I think firstly, Jim had a great way of staying in the now and dealing with the next team while having a view towards what was coming up and what he knew was coming up without getting ahead of ourselves, or getting overconfident. And I do, and it's probably referenced a lot too, like Jim spoke a lot about Tyrone, and we trained in Castlefin, which is literally, there's just a river across, and you can see Tyrone from the distance. And it was kind of referenced and almost pointed to that, that's where we're going, and that's what what we have in our sights. And I suppose the the big the big thing with Jim, and what he does is he does instill real belief, and that belief was being built in those months in Castlefin
And
and
Glenty's Hotel or Downing's.
uh, Downing's Hotel. Yeah, like, well, I suppose Downing's was the first time, and I think everybody was, like, he got us to sign a document, and I think the first day everyone was a bit taken back um, with it all. But as the season progressed and the hard work continued, and everyone started to just believe in what he was telling us. And I think when we got as far as Tyrone, it wasn't a big shock to us, if you know what I mean. It was kind of
Mhm.
like, he was right. There you go. This is what we wanted, and we're here now. And it was just game after game then, and trying to improve and get better. But I think it was just the belief he instilled in us that we could actually do it. And the harder you worked, the more you believed him. And I suppose it all um, worked hand in hand then, and we were lucky then.
No, look, like hard work earns the luck, like, and there's no question you worked harder than any team in 2011 and 2012. Like, the work rate that was in Donegal was insane. Like, to turn it around from where you were losing to Armagh to coming back and beating Tyrone in that semi-final. Although I will give a shout out to the crazy Donegal. I think it Dermot Malloy. He went for goal when you were level, and he went
Yeah.
for goal when he could have easily hand passed it over the bar, but he went for the goal and he stuck it in the net. But, like, it was like, geez, the nerve to
Yeah.
go for the goal. Imagine if that was pushed
Aye,
away.
that was, I think it was Breck Malloy.
Rick Malloy, yeah.
Aye, my own club mate, and I think Breck was very young at the time too. He was probably only 19 or so, maybe
Yeah.
20, and I suppose it was that carefree attitude, and I suppose if he was 30, he might have been,
Yeah.
second guessing himself and fisting it over. But a lot of it's kind of typical of young players to just go and have a lash at something and see how it goes without, the older you get, the more you overthink. And that was a perfect example there.
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, he backed himself. There's no question about it. And then came the Ulster final of 2011. You won it against Derry in the final. That was Donegal's first Ulster title since 1992. So, it had been a long time, 19 years since Donegal had won an Ulster title. Like, I mean, just incredible achievement. And then the emotion that you could see on Jim at the end of the game, and the emotion from the fans, like, it really, really meant a lot. Were you, even on the day, were you surprised at just how much it meant?
Yeah, I think so. I suppose it was the start of a new chapter, really. And I know the chapter started well before that, but everyone kind of stood up and thought, well, here's success. This is what we want. We want to be here, and we want to be here every year, challenging obviously for Ulster and Ulster finals. And I think, going into the final, we were in a good place also, and we knew we had Tyrone bet, and I suppose Derry were, we knew we had their number without being overconfident about it. And I think it was a great feeling, great relief for a lot of the players to get that. And I suppose there was so many good players in Donegal that played between that period in 1992 to say 2011, or well before it, that they didn't get an Ulster medal. Like, there's a club made of my own, John Gilday and Damien Diver, players like this that were real hard workers, played for Donegal for so long and they never got one. And I suppose we were just so lucky personally and early in my career to win an Ulster title.
And that was it. Like, you were right place, right time with a hell of a group that were willing to, put blood, sweat, and tears into that campaign, and it resulted in the Ulster title. Then you played Kildare in one of the most gripping and epic quarterfinals that I've seen, and Kevin Cassidy hits that point like an absolutely outrageous goal. I think it's still one of the best clutch points, certainly from play, clutch points that I've ever seen. Like, to go for it, to have the nerve to even go for it, and it hung in the air for ages, dropped over the bar. That was it. You were into the semi-final. That was as epic as it gets.
Yeah, it was stuff of dreams, like, and everybody was kind of living out a dream at the time. And I mean, the point to win it, it's the commentary on that there is unbelievable too,
Yeah,
and it makes the hair stand the back of your neck when you watch it. But it was just, it was so special to be part of that group and building towards something that would later go on to be successful for us. With the following year, it didn't happen that year, and I suppose we went back to the drawing board and knew what. Well, we had a brave idea of what we had to do to try and get to the next level, and we did that then, and lucky enough.
Yeah, no, sure. It was a hell of a point to win it, and on the same weekend, Dublin beat Tyrone in 2011. So the Dublin won that game 22 points to 15. It was a fantastic performance by Dublin. Diarmuid Connolly hit 7 points. And the Dublin team at that time were seen as a team that kind of, like, the truth is, people saw that Dublin team at the time as being a team that always fell short in semi-finals, and a lot of people were like, this Donegal team actually could be a real tricky one for Dublin because of the way that you sometimes set up at the time and the way that you could grind out results. And a lot of people believed that Dublin hadn't really done that in a long, long time. And that semi-final against Dublin, like, the football wasn't necessarily your stereotypical pretty football, but it was still a gripping contest. It was an absolute arm wrestle in every sense of the word. But after the game, a lot of purists weren't happy with the style of football. And one thing that gets overlooked is Dublin were defensive as well. Dublin parked a lot of lads in their midfield and backline as well throughout the entire championship. So it kind of played into each other. But after the game, Donegal did get some stick. How did you cope with that? That a lot of people were unhappy with the style of play.
Yeah, I think like going back to 2009 and 10 and where we were at, I don't think it bothered the players one bit. I suppose, and I think the people of Donegal, it didn't really bother them, because if you go back, what was it, just over 12 months, we were in a far worse place, having been bet out the gate by Crossmaglen, and we're kind of a strong-minded group in Donegal in terms of the whole county, and I don't think the likes Pat Spillane and that talking like that bothered us really. I think we were delighted to get that far and having known what was next. I mean, like, we won an All Ireland the following year with very little change to our game plan, and like, I don't think anyone cared in that team what way we played. We got the medal, and I suppose that was all that mattered. Like, and it was being defensive, as there's, I suppose Jim McGuinness always talked about. It was being defensive was giving you a platform to attack, and I see it a lot in his game at the minute, is that platform to attack and that speed and transition. With was watching the Monaghan game there and how quick they transitioned from defence to attack. And I know it's big in soccer now at the minute too, but like, I mean, that fine line of defending hard and the next thing you're attacking, like, so how good your defence is can often be, pushed forward on to how fast your attack can be, and then all of a sudden you're scoring 3-10 and you're not a defensive team. So, like, I think it's kind of a bit misunderstood at times on how that plays out. But in terms of personally and the Donegal people, I definitely think there was no worries there with what anyone was saying, and we trusted Jim, and we knew, if we believed in what he was telling us at that stage, having come so far in just a year, that listen, we'll just go to the well again, do whatever it has to be done, and no matter what other people says, and it probably helped, we probably used that a lot over the year, and what people were saying and how they were saying it, and I suppose comments that were made about players, and I always remember Jim referencing that Pat Spillane said there was no man of the match
Oh
against
yeah, the Ryan
and
Bradley.
Balbuffet. And I mean, like, he was only stoking the fire, really, to be honest, because I mean, it was referenced a lot, how disrespectful that was to Ryan Bradley, who got man of the match, and to the team, and things like that. There were Jim used them very well to as they say, with fire in the belly, and help drive us on, and it probably helped us going the other way. Then that transition and attack was being, the fitness was being worked on that there, and we got a good mix then as the year went on.
No, there's no doubt when you look at that Jim definitely created a siege mentality in the team that, like, it's
Yeah.
us against the world, and instances like that probably would have helped. And the one thing that never got talked about was the fact that Dublin were not exactly the most attacking team at the time. The All Ireland final between Kerry and Dublin was 112 to 111. That's not an extortionately high scoring game. And then on top of that, Pat Gilroy came out immediately after and praised the setup. He said, why would you leave Diarmuid Connolly with a load of space like he got against Tyrone to kick 7 points again? He was like, it was just logic what they did. And like, so he respected it a lot. And then just came back next year, swept to the Ulster title this time, and what felt like you were just the best team in Ulster at that stage. And you cruised to the Ulster final victory against Down. I'll never forget Frank McGlynn's goal. That was a real sweeping, just bang into the back of the net. And you're like, oh, Donegal are good. They're the best team in Ulster now. And to know that you had won back-to-back Ulster titles now you were kind of undisputedly the best team in Ulster. And from a position of 2 years before, that would have felt crazy.
Yeah, definitely. And I know I kind of spoke a lot about belief and different things like that. I think going into that All Ireland series, there was a lot more angst, because we knew where we were at the following year, and we knew how good Cork and Kerry were, especially, and like, it was just, personally anyway, going in against Cork and Kerry, like we knew how tough it was going to be, and we knew we had everybody's kind of score in Ulster, and we kind of knew where we were at there. But there was just teams that were in Croke Park and used to playing in Croke Park. There was a bit more pressure in them, and I think probably those two games, Kerry and Cork, were two brilliant games. And like, for us, having won the quarters, I think that was one game that really gave us huge belief, to go on and do it. Like,
yeah, that was the next thing, is that Jim famously said that he was able to go and watch, or at least get somebody to watch, 3 of the 4 teams that they could have been drawn against, and the only one that he couldn't have got was to the Kerry one. And he said that he was listening to the draw on the radio, and it came out Kerry versus Donegal. And that was the other thing, is that up until that point, you had beaten the teams in Ulster, and you had beaten Kildare in the All-Ireland quarter-final. This is the first time you were ever coming up against Kerry. And then after that, Cork. Like, 2 teams that had won 2 of the previous 3 All-Ireland titles. Like, Kerry had won in 2009, Cork had won in 2010. Dublin had obviously beaten Kerry in the final with a bit of a smash and grab in 2011. So Kerry were still Kerry. And to beat them and to beat Cork, that must have given you huge belief.
Yeah, I think you spoke earlier about the Derry Ulster final, and I think those two games at Kerry, and like Kerry have a huge pedigree and always have, and back then and when I was growing up in the 90s, like some Morris Fitzgerald, those boys were
Yeah.
your heroes, and like Kerry was Kerry, and like we were kind of, I wouldn't say feared, but we knew the challenge we were up against, and like again, we just threw everything at it and stuck to the game plan. But to come out of that was huge, huge belief. I think that was kind of,
Because
I
you
would
had a
feel like it
scare
was,
against Kerry as well. The last couple of minutes, Donaghy's goal, and then Carl Lacey's point, I'd say, was the one where you were like, okay, you're at home now.
yeah, that was it. Like it was, those two games were huge, I think, and the whole journey. And there were probably two that would stand out personally for me a lot. And um, playing in Croke Park, and the kind of style of football we were playing and the enjoyment we had of playing the best teams. I suppose in the last lucky years, it was fairly special, and to get to that final end was just, I suppose that's, there's so much with an All Ireland final day, and to get there, it was huge.
No, it was massive, and like that Cork game was an extremely enjoyable contest. Because Cork back then were a fantastic team, and it was kind of assumed that
Mm,
once he's got past, that a lot of people were saying whoever wins that one will go on and win the final. Some people were saying that
mm,
Dublin and Mayo were in the other side of the draw, and Mayo took out Dublin, which left us in the final against Mayo. And obviously Mayo waiting since 1951 from their last All Ireland title. But Donegal was buzzing at the time, and I'm just gonna give you a little trip down memory lane here to what it was like.
He's no lucky, lucky man. Oh, Jimmy's winning matches. Jimmy's winning matches. Jimmy's winning games. Jimmy's winning games. Jimmy's bringing Sammy back to Donegal again. Up Donegal! Oh.
Of course,
uh,
the
Big
iconic.
Ben.
What was it like hearing that for the first time?
It was great hearing it for the first time, but as it went on, I think I remember Jim talking the same. We've actually had heard it that much when we won and the celebrations. Oh, we were well sick of hearing it, but there was a great feeling with it before the All Ireland, and there was great buzz. But personally, you kind of, going up to big finals like that, you kind of try to shut yourself away from it and not feed into the buzz too much. And I know that's definitely a thing of Jim's, that you stay focused on the job at hand and try not to let all the kind of stuff that didn't matter seep in into your mindset. And that, so you kind of, until it's all over, and you kind of relax again, you kind of take all that kind of stuff on board.
Yeah, no, and look, at the county was definitely buzzing. I mean, me personally, I went to Electric Picnic last year, and I heard people from Donegal singing Jimmy's winning matches because he'd obviously recently been appointed back as
Oh,
Donegal boss just before Electric Picnic. So the buzz is already back in there with Donegal, no question about it.
mhm,
And then that All Ireland against Mayo, you got off to the perfect start. There's no question. Like the Michael Murphy goal and then Colin McFadden's goal pretty quickly after just put you in a fantastic position, and you powered on from there. Mayo had their little spells where they bounce back, as
mhm.
Mayo always do. They never give up. But you were the better team on the day. And then that final whistle goes and you are All Ireland champions. Just talk to me about those first, 10 seconds, 30 seconds when the whistle goes, and that's that.
Yeah, it was funny because, so, like, it definitely wasn't the best game we played all year, and I don't think we actually played that well. Like, bar the moment of brilliance from Michael, and sticking to the game plan, I don't think it was. We didn't play that well. But kind of coming up towards the end of the game, you had the feeling that we'd enough done, and we were going to get over the line, and it was a bit surreal being there in the last 10, 15 minutes, kind of thinking to yourself, is this actually happening? And I suppose it was just like, it's a feeling that you it's a cliche again, and everybody says it, like, you know, it is what you dream of as a boy. And you every time you watch an All Ireland final, you see the captain lifting the cup, and you just think about how that you want that to be you. And like, I often think to myself how many young boys have thought that over the years, and wished for it. And you know, and how privileged we were to actually to get up there and do it. You know, and as you get a bit older and as the years go on, you just kind of appreciate it more and more all the time.
Yeah, no, I'd say it was an absolutely incredible feeling. And then like you've talked about your club being from a small rural part of Donegal. You got to bring the Sam Maguire back to there. I mean, that must have been an absolute privilege. Obviously, yourself, Anthony Thompson, other lads from Naomh Conaill on the team. That must have been a special day.
Yeah, that was probably a standout moment. It's funny because we were rushing around the county at the time with the cup, and Glenties was the last stop on the Wednesday night, I think, and we didn't arrive there till 3:30 at night, and it just seemed like 3:30 in the afternoon, and the place was mental. And it was definitely special and something that, you know, I'll treasure forever. And you know, coming into a small town, and Jim as manager from the town as well, and it was just special, really was now. And again, as I say, you know, we were just delighted to have got the chance to do that, you know. And so maybe the boys could reenact that now in the coming years, hopefully.
Hopefully, you know, I mean, like, I loved it when Jim came back. I was like, box office, this is gonna be deadly having Jim back around now. But yeah, like, so 2013, then to move on to 2013, it seemed to me like from the out the gate, Donegal were just wrecked. It just seemed like he's just were running on fumes. Mayo Cotches in the quarter final, and he's were on the hop that day. It was nowhere near the best Donegal we've seen, but in my opinion, arguably the best Donegal performance was 2014 semi-final against Dublin. I'll never talking about hating Jimmy's winning matches after hearing it enough times. I remember sitting there, I think I was 13 years old, and I was miserable because Dublin had been beaten by Donegal in that fourth.
Yeah, I was talking about the 2012 final there, and I think we played much better in the 2014 final, and actually lost, you know. But that's football. That's the way that played out. But I think beating Dublin, it went down and history that day to beat them, and you know, it was.
Jim McGuinness is the only manager to beat Jim Gavin in the championship football match. Like, when you put it like that,
like, I'd say he's happy with that one.
It's absolutely mental, and
that's. But then on the other hand, it's some record for Jim Gavin. Like, it's unbelievable. Like, you know, when you spoke about 2011 there, and when Dublin, you know, they were the team that, you know, that kind of fell at the final hurdle or close to it many times. They were on a huge journey. And those 11, 12, 13 years building something unbelievable that probably has them down as the best team in history.
But that's why Pat had such respect for Jim McGuinness, because in a sense they both came in and did a similar job. Dublin at the time before Pat, Gilroy were very much, they carried a lot of hype with them, and they always were like Billy strutting around, we're going to beat this team, we're going to beat that team. And then Kerry and Tyrone usually caught us at the quarterfinal or semi-final or something like that. And Pat Gilroy came in, first thing he did was he had the lads going out doing shifts at Brother Kevin's soup kitchen, doing sleep outs for the homeless. Like, he was like, you think you're class because you play for Dublin? No, you are honoured to wear that Dublin shirt, and it carries a responsibility with it. And he made them a hard-working team. And in a very similar way to how Jim made Donegal a hard-working team, I feel like that's why Pat and Jim did have a lot of respect for each other in that 2011 semi-final, because they were looking at, you know, the Donegal and Dublin version of themselves, like trying to make a very hard-working team out of a team that wasn't necessarily as hardworking before they came along. It was very, very interesting dynamic between the two of them. But 2014, like, I still think that that was the final. Looking back, I still think that was the final that Donegal could have won. I still, there's something there that I'm like, it just felt like the goal immediately from Paul Ganey, and then Kieran Donaghy's goal was a mistake at the back. Like, just key moments that Donegal just went against you. Like,
yeah.
And then Jim left. And after Jim left, like, did it feel like a hammer blow, or were you confident that the success would continue? Or
I think it was a bit of a hammer blow, you know, really. It was, I can remember coming home to Donegal town, and there was a real feel of an end of an era, you know, and we know when it was Jim's last year, and some players had kind of thrown everything at it. We actually started training, I think we started training in November in 2013. And the famous sand dunes in Dunfanaghy is all often referenced to, doing kickouts and running in November for what went on to be the All-Ireland final in September, you know, and everybody had put so much into it, and, you know, not to get over the line, and, you know, the knowledge that Jim was leaving, and it just really felt like an end of an era, and it was an emotional time for a lot of players, and you know, Jim was gone and that was it. But like, obviously there was, life went on as Donegal football had it, you know.
yeah, and then like, so after that, the next era of basically continuous success was Declan Bonner's. Came in back-to-back Ulster titles in 2018 and 2019, and by then a whole new wave of lads had played their way into the Donegal team. Ryan McHugh, Michael Langan, Jason McGee, like, all these lads had played their way into the team. And like 2018, 2019 is were a fantastic team, and like, particularly one game that's a personal favorite of mine is the game against Kerry in Croke Park in the Super 8s. Like, that finished a draw, but that was just an awesome game of Gaelic football from start to finish. Still, that was a good period for Donegal. Back-to-back Ulster titles. I'm sure if Jim has back-to-back Ulster titles, and by 2025, I think Donegal will be happy enough.
Oh, definitely. It was. I was lucky to get and myself, and you know, get involved in that period of football too. And I think Carl Lacey was involved that time too, which was a huge asset to the coaching styles. And later years in, Rochford came in, but no, definitely it was building blocks for a lot of the players, you know. And I suppose that last element was still missing. That final push kind of had never come. But hopefully, maybe in years to come, like I say, maybe that Jim can help, you know, those players that you mentioned, and even younger players now, give them that final edge that might take them to be challenging for All Ireland finals.
Well, that's it. And like, when we were talking about the similarities and differences between now and back then, I feel like when you look at, say, for example, back then, again, a lot of players were still flying under the radar, whereas that was what was kind of frustrating about Donegal last year. Is like, we knew how good Paddy McBrath is, we know how good Michael Langan is, and maybe if anybody can get the best out of them, it's Jim McGuinness. Like, if anybody can get them to run through brick walls, it is Jim McGuinness. But yeah, on top of that, the last real question I've got for you, you wrapped it up in 2019, late 2019, early 2020, moved into management then. Obviously, you're helping out with Donegal. How has that transition been? How have you found that transition?
I have found it rewarding and tough in a lot of ways. I think I really enjoyed working with players, developing the players in terms of coaching styles and coaching, and, you know, even developing them for their future, and how they'll play and what they'll go on to do. But there was a whole new element of management at inter-county level that I suppose I didn't enjoy as such. You know, it was a lot of, you know, there's a lot more to it than, you know, those organising, and, you know, you have strength and conditioning coach in one ear, physio on the other, county board going into one of the ears too, and organising pitches, and you know, where I really enjoyed working with the players, I suppose. In the future, I'd probably enjoy coaching more than management. Really, it made me give me appreciation for managers, and maybe some of the work, or some of the headaches
Is it
as
then
such.
that you realise just how good Jim McGuinness was?
Yeah, I think so. Like, and how, I suppose, he was one track minded, and if anyone knows Jim, he's hard to change Jim's mind. So, I mean, that worked in his favour a lot of the time.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Well, Leo, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you today. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to come on.
No bother at all, Seamus. It was my pleasure, and nice to relive some of the memories there. Thanks.
No, don't. And thank you to anybody who listened to the episode. We are going to keep up with the content, so make sure that you join us here on An Cluiche. And until the next one, guys, take care.